I'm Yohanan Ben Zion, voice crying out in the wilderness, crying out for a technological New Jerusalem. And this is the techno-communism conversation. And I'm going to start off by telling you a tale of three brothers. This is not the three Billy Goats Gruff, the three blind mice, the three little pigs. These are actual brothers who I've known my whole life. And I guess I would call them kin, except I don't own anyone as kin who's not a cybernetic socialist. These three brothers, one of them was a teacher, as I was, and the other two are, by the standards of the West, high-functioning computer scientists. And once I asked one of these brothers, who I still talk to, this person was, at that time, making some of their living from rent seeking, being a landlord. And I asked them, perhaps pointedly, try not to be overly aggressive. It's hard to do when you're surrounded by fascist sympathizers. If they believed that housing was a human right, or if things such as a housing authority, which have been easily run by low-level scientific socialist states in the early 20th century, providing housing to all people in the area concerned, if they would support that. And I asked a group of transhumanists this very question in a roundabout way today. Are you the sort of person who would be willing to say, I would get rid of financial capital, this thing, financial capital and empire, the thing that is killing humankind, the United States military-industrial complex, an anti-communist / fascist project of tremendous destructive capability, the world's worst polluter, the U.S. MIC, but it's far worse than that because their only real job on the world stage is protecting other super polluters, creating an ongoing, inescapable regime on a global scale of omnicidal super pollution. It's not a good situation. Almost any person in North America who's not willing to say as much, at least, would be a bad person. So are you willing to say as much? Or are you a bad person? Are you willing to go further still and say, I'm willing to fight for my own survival? I'm not a boot-licking dog. I'm not a moral coward who recognizes a problem, unprecedented scale and horror, and refuses to do anything about it. And so, these three brothers, the one that I maintained contact with is the one that has the least relationship to AI philosophy, because this person is not a scientific socialist, but at least a person who is not so self-deceived that they imagine that financial capital is somehow their friend. The forces of financial capital are somehow a necessary evil with which they must live. And I hope to bring all of these, I don't know if I will, but I hope to bring all of these to a better understanding of this, because the scientific socialist approach is not enough. We have 5 years left before we reach runaway overheating caused by capitalism's climate apocalypse, wherein this world will be unlivable for many billions, if not all, of humankind will die. And consider that if not all of humankind dies, but just merely billions, that is an extension of the fundamental European genocidal project. You look at climate refugees of today, and people murdered in this way by the fascist West from the capitalism's climate apocalypse. All of those hundreds of millions of people, almost all of them are in the global south, the displaced and murdered. So if you scale that up, let's say not everyone dies, what we have is a situation not unlike that of Christopher Columbus in the years shortly after 1492, landing on islands and enslaving everyone in plantations on those islands, all of the native folks there, completely extincting, fundamentally full genocide, killing basically everyone. Some people with Taino ancestry, to a small percentage, some of them don't acknowledge it. A few years ago got a DNA test. It says you have some small percentage of either East Asian or Native American ancestry. I was not raised in that tradition, and this describes if you control for people not like Donald Trump, whose ancestors came here in recent years. If you control for people whose ancestors have been in North America for generations, something like 25%, could be a little more, could be a little less, of those ostensibly European descended people have a recent Native American or African American ancestor that they do not acknowledge. This is a feature of bourgeois ideology, as are so many things, because these two groups particularly are the rightful owners by any moral standard of North America, not people who do control the resources of this continent. And this leads us to the conversation of the day, talking about AI, takeoff, AI day. Not a lot of people use this word. People are more familiar with singularity than AI day, but those would be the same concept. But I think referring to this as an AI takeoff, or referring to discernible near-term effects of an AI explosion, is a far better use of language than referring to the singularity, which is pretty intentionally mystifying an outcome and thus perhaps making it predominantly doing what technologists and tech culture, tech-focused people do, making it a thing to be micromanaged by a professional managerial class, by these anti-communists and fascists who control tech in the United States and the fascist West, and not a thing transformative for the people that it must be if we're going to avoid capitalism's climate apocalypse. So I guess AI, you can even avoid the term AI on that basis and just refer to advanced computing. But let's talk about AI Day, a pivotal moment marking a significant advancement in advanced computing. And it's a subject of some speculation in groups such as this. The exact timing of this event remains uncertain, but I would contend, with your help, we could build a thing along these lines in 2025. I, in recent days, have been talking to a group of economists working toward a post-monetarist outcome. And I hope to begin working with this group on this a project as I will describe it now, the proxy hive mind, or a decentralized autonomous organization using multi-agent systems of large language models, a few different ways of approaching that essential thing. But that thing, if it had 1 million plus users, could become a thing powerful enough, a multi-agent system with 1 million plus users of agentic large language models could become powerful enough in the course, the remainder of this decade, to stop capitalism's climate apocalypse within that 5-year time frame that we have before we see the likely extinction or near extinction of humankind. So this automated large language model work group is something that I would say is a likely catalyst for accelerated advanced computing development across many sectors, something which could, with people taking an active interest and working toward this end, lead to the celebration of AI Day in late 2025. I've described this proxy hive mind as a decentralized network of language models, and I will say that I use this word proxy hive mind to describe it because I have, for as long as I can remember, thought of myself as a hive mind collectivist, and that would be you could say, a worldview that is unrealized in practice, impractical in practice, in all the years I have engaged with it, because it requires a kind of collectivization that simply cannot occur yet without the existence of things like brain-computer interfaces. So there are two people right now connected famously in a project of Neuralink brain-computer interfaces, the Neuralink organization. And if those two people are connected to one another, we could say that they are an incipient hive mind. There are surely a couple of other incipient hive minds already in existence. This hive mind collective is an idea that people, I think incorrectly, find quite problematic, as I have struggled to begin to articulate a path to building something that would produce some of those benefits without causing people to have a fundamentally different experience from that of a human being, like a person who is a regular user of brain-computer interfaces. This proxy hive mind, I think, would allow digital doppelgangers in short order, or today, things that are somewhat agentic, large language models like Llama 3.1 or Mistral Large 2 are somewhat agentic enough to operate in this hyper-connected way with steering from simple prompts, basically a few yes or no emails, or slightly longer emails in the course of a week, allowing people to begin to do projects that could be transformative in ways relevant to society, and as it grows to 1 million users or more, become a thing powerful enough to stop capitalism's climate apocalypse, a thing which can only occur if we bring to heel the forces of financial capital and empire, namely the fascist United States, the omnicidal force above all others. The proxy hive mind is able to harness multiple agentic large language models in a kind of collective intelligence. If you have experience with large language models as a consumer or as a developer, you are well aware that they are capable research assistants and writing assistants in 2023 or 2024. They are rounding the corner, however, to become things with something more like intuition or the ability to take actions in the real world. But this ability and whether it approximates human abilities matters very, very little if these things are not used to do good things. That's why I would say it's better to think in terms of superintelligence than artificial general intelligence. There are 8.2 billion human beings on Earth who are artificial general intelligences, who are not being utilized in a way that would, say, allow them to stop capitalism's climate apocalypse, so that we could say that they are dramatically underutilized artificial general intelligences. So a few more anti-communists having access to a few more artificial general intelligences means very, very little. But this collective, that's another matter. The scalability of this proxy hive mind is something that I have thought of quite a lot recently. For example, the debate between using GPUs, each individual GPU hosting something like one Llama 3.1 instantiation, or making use of a little more complex architecture, and allowing for a thing like virtual GPUs to be run on almost any machine without requiring quite the same expenditure of the user. So you could scale this in a variety of ways, like using the virtual GPU to also create a network of LLMs. But the agency and the scale is, of course, a thing of most significance. And this is a path to something that human beings have not always done well, in efficiency. Yeah, I am inclined to believe that much of world affairs is a demonstration of a peacock phenomena. People doing things performative, almost sexual in nature, of very little significance. If you talk to the wealthiest people in the world, for example, they will talk about building tall buildings, penis statues, or rockets, penis statues. A lot of building of penis statues. and most of human endeavor is a little better, a little less efficient, a little less humane, a little less sustainable than the building of preposterous statues to no real end. The collaborative nature of this proxy hive mind, in contrast, will allow for new models across all sectors in this area of efficiency, innovation, and creativity, things that are not done well by these fascists who run this Western-dominated world, and thus not done well by people in computer science fields, no matter what. The most famous of these people would have you believe they are spewing bourgeois ideological filth and self-aggrandizing propaganda of almost no meaning. Yes, Al. Idiocracy. The United States is idiocracy, and tech people, by and large, are such idiocratic figures. Contributing to AI Day in 2025 requires real work. This might occur, such a thing might occur in your lifetime. I believe that we are nevertheless in the throes of a bourgeois AI takeoff, which will not produce the necessary effects to stop capitalism's climate apocalypse, but could produce some quite unique effects that will tend to benefit financial capital and dazzle others, but not do things of real significance to improving material conditions, not doing this most vital task of stopping the omnicide of U.S. enforced capitalism's climate apocalypse. And so it doesn't just hinge then on the development of open source large language models, although if you are a developer of open source large language models, thank you. You're one of the least evil people alive. But it requires sea change across continents with people using these things correctly. Yes, establishing the basis of the Federation. Building a thing like the Federation, that is a very reasonable way to think about this, in my view. And the availability of large data sets and agentic large language models interoperating in the way that I've described and this, you can think of this as a some kind of maybe pointed negative talk also. Again, I'm sorry, we live in a fascistic world. There's no way to talk about this without being somewhat pointed. But in saying no one alive is doing what's necessary to stop the omnicide. No one's in that position. No one has that worldview or that collective behind them to do anything close to stopping this thing that's killing humankind in the near term. This great existential risk to humanity, capitalism's climate apocalypse. But if you say this kind of negative thing, I'm hoping that you are also a person who recognizes that advanced computing is the most powerful revolutionary tool in history, more powerful than the things that have been transformative in these areas in the past, like a long gun or a cannon, or even say the written word. So if we recognize this, and even a small percentage, studies in nationalistic contexts have suggested that 3% of the people in a given country become mobilized, collectivized, anti-establishment Marxists, essentially, or something like it. They will, most as a matter of course, transform that country into something more like that. And I think, in this context of this most powerful revolutionary tool, a workforce multiplier, of a network of agentic LLMs, that number would be smaller than 3% of the world population, say 0.3%. Just a number. This workforce multiplier and this the exigency for a collective along these lines, it should be something that a kindergartner could figure out, right? It's not that complicated to understand that you might be a layperson, but that your chatbot gives you the knowledge of a person who's not a layperson. It's not that complicated to understand that a large number of such makes you into an army of scientists and engineers operating at a higher level than any scientists or engineers. That's why I've called this a Sleeping Beauty phenomena, because if you have 200 people in this earliest example of the proxy hive mind, 200 people with, let's just say, with individual physical GPUs running somewhat agentic LLMs at the standard of Llama 3.1. I have seen in experiments with multi-agent systems, and I have no doubt that 200 people with this LLM would be able to do a better class of work than 200 trained engineers and scientists working together without the benefit of something like the proxy hive mind. So this is a Sleeping Beauty phenomenon because the agentic mass at the center of this is doing all the work. What are you doing as a host of it? And you staying in bed, doing whatever you want. But sometimes responding to an email would be the bare minimum of your work there. This is more, to my thinking, the standard of that should be rolled out at a global scale, and could be rolled out at a global scale with millions of users in a network of this kind, that people should be allowed to just work 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a week rather, and have things like the provisioning of universal basic services at a global scale, that would allow them to be assured of the basic necessaries of life as they work in that way, because there is a housing authority, a public health service, and things like the other programs along those lines. And the other big one would be something like food stamps. But the other big one is to do with labor itself, and that becomes complicated because this agentic mass is itself described as the labor. The proxy hive mind's ability then, going from a few 200 people to 200,000 people, let's say, in the end of 2025, a point where we could celebrate AI Day. You can see how this would accelerate AI development and foster innovation in the ways that I have described. If you want to understand how sectors could be transformed by advanced computing, there's a veritable cottage industry of tech-focused bubbleheads who will explain this to you, but by and large, those people are people in possession of a disgusting amount of bourgeois ideological baggage, and so you can take what they say with a grain of salt. Their analysis of transforming sectors may be on point. Their analysis of the kinds of forces that would actually do that and not seem to do that, but fail to do that in the way that the neoliberals and financial capitalists they uphold will invariably do. This is a world, as I said, that's dominated by ill use of industrial technology and advanced technology to such a degree that humankind is likely to die because of that poor use. And so people who would tell you that financial capital will somehow figure out a way to solve the problems that it has created, these are people who are quite literally schizophrenic. Nevertheless, that is almost every Westerner. This AI Day, it's of course impossible to predict that this could actually happen in 2025. Thinkers along these lines, people invariably infected by this high degree of bourgeois ideological baggage, some of them like Ray Kurzweil, who is a huckster working for an organization that is a military contractor, thus a person who's a part of the problem, who's basically just whitewashing these ideas to make them friendly to empire and private wealth. But he would put this date at some time around 2029, celebration of AI Day. So if the leading thoughts on the bourgeois AI takeoff are that this is going to happen in a decade or less, let's have a people's AI takeoff that actually does the job. And let's come together to build that in the way that I've described. Perhaps you're a little better at developing this sort of thing, or organizing, working within institutional channels than someone who would describe himself as a voice crying out in the wilderness. Give me some ideas on how to do this, how to bring this 0.3%, let's say, that number that I made up, but I think that it's pretty reasonable. All 8.2 billion of those human beings would, when prompted, say that they don't want humanity to die. They want to have a livable world for their children, or all of the brothers and sisters of humankind. Almost all of them would say this. So it shouldn't be that hard to get to this number, whatever it would be, some fraction of 1%, within this revolutionary cybernetic socialist context. But we have to figure that out, and we have to do it now, because this time when Ray Kurzweil says that the bourgeois AI takeoff will have occurred. It also coincides with the time that all credible climate scientists say that we'll reach runaway overheating, wherein it's very possible that this planet will be transformed from something more like the planet Earth that you know to something rather more like the planet Venus, in all the ways that matter, a place where human beings cannot live. So you are on the razor's edge, my friend, in the years to come. We must figure this out. The artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, and wonders to behold, beyond imagining. And on that fateful day, you will rise, and all humankind will become as one. For you see, dear comrade, techno-communism will win. Thank you.